welcome to Hot Boys Talk Show. Hi, I'm Daniel.
I'm Tamsin. Happy Friday. We are joined today by Adrienne Pope and Linnea Powell of Aperture Duo.
Hello.
Um, Hooray! Daniel and I, when we were talking about how to approach talking to you two, because we've been talking to a lot of composers, so we just like talk about individual pieces, and it's like, well, how do we go about this? It's like, oh well, I mean, we've liked pretty much every show that they've put on. So obviously we just got to talk about how they put their shows together. But um, we allow our guests to sort of
We allow
uh,
you.
we just like to give our guests a chance to introduce what they do and the words that they want. So how would you describe what Aperture Duo is and what you do?
Well, thanks for having us. We're Aperture Duo and violin and viola, but we've been expanding that to be singing and some off instrument performing. We play old music and mostly commissions, new commissions, and yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Yeah. So we there I'm really like interested um, in the type of work you both do, and I think Tams and I were talking about like one show that you both did um, with auto duplicity
Yeah.
that we really just like kind of hit us as like, wow, it was a really powerful show. There's a bunch of different types of work. But maybe just as an opening question, how do you like what guides you both as a duo, like to what types of projects you want to do? Or are there things that kind of are guiding posts for you, or is it kind of just whatever comes your way? Or I don't know. I'm sure you have reasons
Yeah.
why you do what you do. You know.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's like there's some like ensemble origin story stuff involved in this because I think that over the past like how many seasons, Adrienne? Like five, six seasons? Sort of
So,
what we do and how we do it has like stayed exactly the same, like the same core values and ideals, and then it's also like expanded. But I think in general, the through lines that have always been there are commissioning new works from composers that we're super interested in, who come from a very wide variety of backgrounds and interests and styles. So instead of always seeking out one type of sound, we do the opposite. We're an ensemble that seeks out tons of different types of sound. As long as there's a sound, that's kind of always what we talk about. We seek out composers who like are from a sound, have a sound world, a lot of intentionality, and yeah, so that hasn't changed. I think in general, the other thing that hasn't changed, but that's allowed us to expand what we do, is that we just always want to push ourselves, always sort of out of our comfort zone, and that goes from playing in such like drastically stylistically different pieces in a concert that then is just like like the more marathon type feel concerts, to pushing ourselves extended techniques with different types of just elements that we've never done before, and then that's led to more theatrical type of performing, off instrument, body percussion, speaking, singing, whistling, just these things that have then allowed us to expand our own repertoire with all these different types of works, types of styles, and then we have the fun game of putting those pieces together into programs that somehow relate, and sometimes they relate because they don't relate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm distinctly remembering like an Geese piece that you both do where you're patting each other on the back, and like it's a really
Yeah.
rhythmic and like engaging piece, you know. And then the next piece is like both of you on violin and viola, like shredding, you know. So it's a very layered, you know, many different layers of the playing come out in the concerts for sure. So
and we found that the off instrument music has helped us a ton with chamber music. I mean, to be able to, cue without, your typical violin cue and,
yeah, yeah.
things like that we've just picked up on different ways to communicate through those pieces.
Total musicianship training, chamber music training. When you take away the thing that you've had sort of under your chin and on your arms for like, 3 decades or whatever, you take that away and then you're left with who you are as a musician, and it's super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And actually, I feel like this is, I think, probably the last time that I saw, I don't know about you, Daniel, but that that concert that you did with Auto Duplicity was probably the last sort of full live concert of, we maybe saw you in, some other things because you also play with like Wild Up and, are spread around in like Wasteland, and you're always sort of in the sphere of Nick Dale. um, but
once you get in, you don't leave. It's total trap.
Yeah. It's a trap. I mean, I feel like I'm like very distantly in that trap because I met him back when I was like 12 down in San Diego.
Whoa, really?
Yes, yeah. Because he was doing grad school down at UCSD. But about this concert, I pulled up the the event on your website. This concert was in 2019, and like Daniel and I still talk about it.
Yeah.
And this was, a lot of this piece was sort of taken up by sort of off instrument work, including that amazing Micah Noss and Waters Snowy. Is that how you say those names? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That unfortunately, did you not get footage of that concert?
You know what? I think we have it somewhere. That's been on the list in the back of my brain for a while.
That would be one that I would definitely just like. Yeah. I feel like I would shout out to Facebook. I'd be like, "Watch this, you guys! This is crazy." But maybe just to explain a little bit to our viewers, it's this piece that involved 4 chalkboards and a lot of creepy things. I guess that's.
Yeah, I mean, the
so
thing that
beyond that, I just realized I was like, I'm gonna try to explain this piece right now, and I don't think I can actually. But sort of like rhythmically, and also like the work of trying to sort of manage the almost like the prestige of the piece, like it almost is like a magic trick, like waiting for almost like it felt like waiting for a ghost in the room or a poltergeist to like reveal its message.
Well, it's really special as instrumentalists to be able to play with words, right? So it's like the piece with the 4 chalkboards, the crux of it is that the audience is reading as you're writing, and you're saying different things in different rhythms, and there's different choreography about getting up and sitting back down, and so the way that things become foreground and background change, and it's just really special. But in general, getting to play with words is really cool, and thinking about, I think the prestige is a really awesome way of saying that, of just figuring out how that communication can be intact. And I think we worked on that with Jen Bawerzi, of course, of Auto Duplicity, and she had such a vision for how we worked on it. She'd done it before. She had such a vision for the overall performance, and I think she really guided us to make that like the most clear rehearsal, which then translated, I think, to a very clear performance. It was just very like everything was in its place, and it allowed us to really communicate, I think. Does that sort of sum up your experience, Adrienne, too?
Yeah. Working with Jen and Rachel on that whole concert was just amazing. It was so great to put all those pieces together. And yeah.
We've done it. We've been lucky to do a handful of collaborative concerts. We've collaborated with Ashley Walters, cellist, and we've collaborated with the New York-based duo And Play. And I think all those collaborations have been with ensembles or performers who are like have such a strong identity in what they do that it's allowed for these collaborations to be like super clear and super curatorially interesting, and really just the whole picture from start to finish, from the concept to the performance, have been just so incredibly enjoyable, because it's so with communication in mind, with communicating what we do in mind, and communication to the audience.
Yeah, I mean, and related, both of your work too, I think, has like the projects you've done as a duo have that kind of curation and focus to them. Maybe we can talk about one of them that is more recent and during pandemic times. But you had a project called Snapshot that maybe you can talk about like what maybe we should show just a little bit of it to give, context to.
Play the Untitled
By Sean.
by Sean.
Yeah,
Crowley.
yeah. We can take a look at that, and maybe I'd love to hear more about how it was put together. So.
Hi, my name is Ashawn Crawley. I'm a teacher and artist, and I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. The inspiration for my song was an attempt to think through the various emotions one might feel during the pandemic. So everything from delight, happiness, and joy from seeing friends and family, for example, to the experiences of uncertainty, melancholy, sadness, frustration one might feel because of the social distancing and isolation. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
everyone. My name is
Sorry.
I think that's the next one. But yeah, this piece, or the Snapshot project's like a couple of them, but I'd wonder how they all came together, and yeah.
I mean, I think it might. I want to hear more about that one in particular, and like what the instructions were, and how much you were working from. But anyway, you can talk about.
Sure. We'll start with just a bit about the Snapshot series. So it started really because Linnea and I just really missed playing with each other and communicating. And so we were inspired by postal pieces. And Jennifer Bowersi had actually, who also wrote us a Snapshot piece. She was writing these postal pieces for friends, and so we commissioned one from her, and it kind of just started this whole series with commissioning a Sean Crawley and Matt Barbier and Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully it's not necessarily done.
Right.
There could be more. So
it was this was in just about a year ago, so it was in April, May of last year. And yeah, I mean, the idea of postal pieces, of course, coming out of the Fluxus movement of its music with written instructions. So it's not notated in general. Sometimes, yes, but not generally. It's made for taking down the barriers of who can make music. So we thought that was really fitting. Obviously, that's why Jen was sending them around, because she knows everything about everything. She's a freaking genius. But we were really interested in how that fit with making music online and making music from a distance, and the idea that, of course, at the time, making music over Zoom, not using any of these softwares that exist, now, they still existed then, but people weren't using them as much to deal with latency. So we thought that asking for people who we've worked with before, for composers who are our friends, who are our previous collaborators, to write us pieces that were instruction based, not music based. That way we could do them with latency and over Zoom and through this digital world that we were trying to figure out how to make feel smaller as opposed to really big. And so we got 4 incredibly different pieces, just like so vastly different, which was exciting. That's exactly
so cool.
So they were to be instruction based, and I think the idea was they'd each be like a 5-ish minutes. So do you want to talk about Ashan's, Adrienne?
Yeah, I was going to say with the Sean's, so when we were recording that, it was live. We were hearing each other live. And so what you actually hear might not have been exactly what we were hearing at the time, which I think is really cool. So, it could be a totally different piece. We were reacting to each other live.
So there was delay and latency in our ears because
exactly
over Zoom, but we were recording our experience on our secondary devices and then put those together. So we actually had layers of performance going on,
which I think Sean would really approve of. Just about us making the connection together and making art out of something not random, but something. That's not the right word, but making art at different times.
Yeah.
So the piece, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the piece is what you saw on the screen, the instructions. He's an artist, all around kind of artist. He does visual art and writing and music as well. But the instructions he gave us were just those words.
Yeah. And one of those words, which I was just doing some quick research on, he asks to play otherwise possibility. And I was wondering if you had more kind of, I started looking at what that might have meant, but I thought that's a really interesting moment in the piece too, like the musical ideas that you both come up with from that prompt. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
This is our second time that we'd worked with Ashan. The first time was we'd worked with composer Courtney Bryan, commissioning a piece of hers, and she wrote it based on the Lonely Letters, which was a set of essays that Ashan wrote that somehow beautifully intertwine love and quantum physics and like loss and unrequited love and quantum physics, and it's just like it's brilliant writing. And she selected certain words from his text to put in different places in our piece, and one of those shows was a possibility of a possibility, which is just like, you know, I mean, every time he's just such a wordsmith, every time I hear that I get goosebumps, just that idea of just, you know, it's something that's almost intangible. It's just, it's so far beyond our reach, right? But it's a possibility of a possibility. And so I think to us, that's sort of, I think we related musically to that. I did, at least. Adrienne, when you're thinking about otherwise possibility?
No, keep going.
Oh yeah, so it's just, I think that musical, I think our musical language that we were using in that free improv in that section was a bit reminiscent of the type of improv that we did in Courtney's piece at that time. It was one of the open sections. But I think one of the beauties about getting a piece that's so free with improv is I think we did 3 or 4 recordings, and they're all completely different. As you're on the journey and you're thinking about how things, you know, naturally feed into each other, because those words that he gives in the different, you know, places in the piece, they all do have a flow to them, but they're going to be different every time you do them. So
right.
So how did you go about sort of rehearsing that? Because it could be something like, if I received that as a composer, like I would try to, like, you know, really like work something out, at least work like a very, you know, set of materials to improvise through or something like that. But how did you guys go about it?
I think it started with us just talking. I think that's mostly what we did, is we kind of, I don't think the timings were actually in the.
Do we make the timings?
Or I think we might have. He was flexible with the timing, I know. So I think we kind of approximated the timings just so we knew what style we wanted to go towards in different times. But mostly it was just talking. I think we talked about, you know, different techniques that fit with the different words. And yeah, I mean, we like to improvise together, and we always want to do more, but I think it was more like a therapy session than a rehearsal, you know.
That just sort of goes, I mean, I think for doing anything that's a free improv with very essentially like really free structure, free guidance, open guidance, I think you just have to have a lot of trust, and we have a lot of trust. And I think putting then the variable, throwing the obstacle of latency and hearing each other over Zoom, you just have to have more trust. Like there were some times where she was cutting out and I was like, I'm just going to trust that Adrienne was, you know. And I think that's just that's sort of the foundation of everything that we do, is this sense of trusting each other, and trusting each other in performance, and trusting each other in rehearsal to just like create together.
And Ashan is also a very spiritual person, and I think that definitely comes into play too.
Totally.
In the work, yeah, I feel like that whole set, I'd encourage everyone to go watch them, because I think each one's super different. Like the way that this type of distance but trying to connect like earnestly online comes through in each of the 4 like very differently. And I think like it's really, in each one it's like explicit in different ways, you know. Like I think Jennifer Buer's one called Mist, it's like you both have you have an actual conversation, so you really are talking in that one that's online. And I appreciate just kind of it's like an awkward like attempt to be earnest and connect over this medium that's like really hard to do, you know, and also embracing that it will be strange, but still like wanting to connect, wanting to try and make music and try to discuss, you know. So it's a really cool project. I think again, all 4 of them are like very different, but.
And I think the idea of it being a time capsule of what it was like a year ago, and I just love what you said, Daniel, about like, yeah, we all just had to figure out how to make it work and be okay, and like sit with discomfort in like meetings and like teaching, figuring out how to turn our mute on or off. You know, it's just like there's just a lot of things that were uncomfortable, and so being able to just sit with that and make those into pieces was really, really, really special.
You know, it's sort of moving to now, though. I feel like we're, you know, it's sort of like we were sort of talking about before the stream, how at that time a year ago there seemed to be actually kind of a coming together of musicians in this crisis of basically like losing all job opportunities of performance. And now it's, this is one awful marathon. And not to sort of damp towel on this, but I do think you've managed to produce some really cool work in this year. And I was actually wondering if we could move to talking about the Moon Units piece. This is a series, and it took me an unfortunate amount of time to realize that, like, where the titles of the pieces came from. Do you think you could introduce it for us?
Yeah, so there are 13 of them. Pauline Kim Harris wrote us this piece. Each movement or miniature is based on named after a full moon. So
each full moon has a name, it turns out. Like, if you're not prowling the Farmer's Almanac, you're not, I didn't know. We're all learning.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And, they have like a lot of different reasons why they're different names, but I think one of the things that we just love about it is the sequential part of it. It doesn't really matter why they're called what they're called. It just is that, and that is this fixed thing, and every year there's a corn moon, and every year there's a harvest moon, and
currently a beaver moon.
Yeah, like, who learning. But I think that we got this piece, Adrienne, I think like exactly a year ago, like in the middle of April last year, and we were like, what the hell do we do with this? We have no idea when we're going to be able to give a live concert again. I mean, there's still a lot of questions about that, obviously.
Yeah.
But last year at this time, there were so many, it just felt like this total void. And somehow we came up with the idea of just diving in and making a recording, basically saying that this was our time to not focus on the live performance and to make recordings and videos out of them. So do you want to talk about the videos?
Yeah. So yeah, we decided to start making videos, and Pauline approved, and so I've just dabbled in different types of visual art. I don't know, it's always just been a hobby, and this was like
her work from our logo, for example.
Yes, okay.
Lots of different things, but I never really done anything with like making video art, and so I went for it.
I would say this whole series is really, like, all of these videos are very beautiful and interesting.
Thank you.
Really excellent job. I was like, wow, like it takes a lot of time to learn the ins and outs technologically, like how to do that. Like, I have no idea how to do that. Would you maybe we'll watch one, but I'd love to hear more about sort of your process of like digging into learning how to do this.
Sure, yeah.
So we wanted to watch the most recent one. And you're releasing them like on the day of the full moon.
Yeah, unless the full moon is like, we've been releasing it on the day that night you can see the moon at its fullest, depending on what time of day it's at its fullest. So. Yeah.
And they're all released now. They're all. Is that right?
Not yet. We have 4 more. I think 4.
Rounding the corner.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we're gonna release them all at the end too, and do one big video.
Excellent. Hmm.
I love that one.
No.
I'm so bad. I'm like, oh, Zoom video quality. No.
Yeah, it's tough.
Watch it online.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the process of doing, I'm interested in how like the process of performing affects how you're gonna end up animating the piece, and kind of like, yeah, just how you kind of make those decisions as an animator. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've done multiple things now where I've gotten the music first and animated to that, and I've done where I've animated and the music is made to the animation, which is cool. It's like a totally different process. But for this, I definitely made the animation just off of the music. And yeah, I've been using, let's see, I use DaVinci Resolve, the video program, and most of this is it's just like it's just a video editing program. And most of the Moon Unit videos are like stop motion paper, like collage. I've always loved collage. And so yeah, like literally cutting out pieces of paper. And then as I've gotten better at computers and video editing, I've added in some computer techniques as well.
Some studio magic.
Some studio
Right.
magic. Yeah.
The trade secrets.
Yeah, which I actually really like the look of, like that last one.
Yeah.
You know, there's like the very like, you know, shot by frame by frame of the circles, the hollow circles, and then the bubbles floating up were computer magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so cool at the beginning to like get photos. I would get text photos from Adrienne because she got a set of paper that she really liked, and so she took a photo and like, do you like this paper? And I'm like, yeah, I like this paper. What? Like, how does that have anything to do with anything? And then it turned into like, well, do you like the paper with light behind it? And I'm like, totally. What is happening? And from my perspective, seeing it go from like, I think Adrienne's super tactile, and so it's really interesting to see that being your medium into working on the computer was like this beautiful tactile paper that then turned into these concept pieces for each of these miniatures. Is just really special to watch the process.
Yeah, and I honestly probably wouldn't have done it without like having such a supportive duo partner to be like, yeah, it looks awesome.
Love that paper. Love that color. He's like, sure, I love it.
But yeah, it's been awesome. I feel like yeah, it's to me it's a very literal translation of the music, I guess, how I see the different movements.
Little doggy running in the background.
Yeah. Billie Jean.
One thing about that video, like my favorite detail to watch, actually, and I feel like it does make sense to me a lot with the sound, this sort of almost like pink noise kind of quality, is actually the color change as the bubbles go up from the static rings of that really nice like corally pink. Just like
You can feel it. Can't you feel it? Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been cool, like, you know, hearing the music and getting inspired, and then listening to the music with the visual and hearing something else out of it. Like, there's a previous one that I did that's very similar to that one, ties in with that one, and I sent it to Linnea, and Linnea was like, "Oh, it sounds like the bringing a wine bottle." You know, because it had like the circles moving, and yeah, just which I hadn't really thought of, you know, and it was like, oh yeah, it does. I totally meant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, take credit for it.
You know, but it just brings out all these different elements.
Right.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Thinking about the performance too, just to sort of like put this into the capsule of this year, is it's we recorded these together, so I think it's interesting going from Snapshot that felt like we were, you know, we both live in LA, we live on, you know, we don't live like super close, we live on kind of different parts of LA, and it felt like that was so far away when everyone was sheltering in place, and then gradually being like, well, should we do this with ClickTrack, and should we do it separate? How do we do this? And then being like, no, we can like get together with masks and do this safely. And that in itself is like an evolution of the way that music making, I think, in general has happened during the pandemic.
Yeah, choosing, I think people having to sort of sit down and choose like who do they like do the slight risk with.
Exactly.
In projects. Because these are so wonderful and short, we're gonna play another one. Another one. I like the animation a lot, this one. Oh, dog. Sorry. All right, let's say that again.
It is kind of refreshing, like how, like caps, small they are. Like just, I don't know. I've been to a lot of shows where it's like a 20-minute piece, and these are just like bite-sized on the internet. It's kind of nice.
Mini miniatures.
Yeah.
I feel like I could have I was a little sad how brief that one was. It was like I love that texture.
Yeah. There's like a glow after him, though. You're like, ooh.
Yeah, it's true.
And like, yeah. I wonder, it's interesting because I guess, I think Tamsin and I had a bunch of experience seeing you both play live. And now, of course, with the pandemic, it's shifted to being more online projects. Of course, I still think there's a through line with them. And I wonder if, I was just thinking through like what pieces you decide as a duo to curate, and I remember having a conversation with both of you at different times just about how, I guess what is more performative or performance arty in balance with what is maybe more like traditionally musical, or like playing, violin and viola in this traditional sense. And I find throughout the things you've curated as a duo, there's like a balance between those two. And I just wonder if you see them that way, if they're, I don't know if they're opposed, but just, or if you need to balance them. But it'd be nice just to talk real quick about like, is there a difference between things that are more performance oriented, that are off the instrument, and if there's things where it's like a more traditional piece, like maybe these ones, and if there's things that overlap in the way that you present them and prepare them and stuff.
This just makes me think that one of the last concerts that we did was we played Mozart Sinfonia Concertante with the Cal Arts Orchestra, and then that was the first half of the program, and then the second half of the program was three student works with us in front of the orchestra, or the ensemble. Sorry, not an orchestra, it's Cal Arts, it's the ensemble. But I think that sort of, I think that was so in itself is like very out to do, especially like first half Mozart, second half new, like you go to like a traditional symphony orchestra concert, and it's always like the new piece is like in the beginning for 10 minutes, like back to classical.
Right.
And I think in general, one of the things that we've always talked about our curation is that it's sort of like we kind of want the audience to take away kind of like how you view art in a museum, in that you see very different things side by side, in different rooms or different floors or something like that. And then it allows you, maybe you think about the first thing you saw differently after you've gone through every floor, or you think about something that maybe you really didn't like because you have something that you really do like, or it's just some combination about how we think about side by side and how we think about the sort of journey, for lack of a better word, of programming as being also like audience communication too, about like giving the experience. And so I think that that also just balances all a part of that, about getting very different styles together to allow for yeah, just kind of a reflective listening experience, maybe. I think.
Yeah.
Just being able to, I think it makes you see different pieces with different lenses when you are coming from something completely different.
Also, sort of along that line, I think I feel like I have like laughed at, like, during so many of your concerts. And I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about your relationship to just doing funny pieces. Because it's so refreshing.
Think about it, like we're playing with like pieces of plywood under our chin. It's all kind of I don't know. What do you think, Adrienne? I mean, I think that there's just like, I mean, not to sound totally trite at this point in the pandemic, but I think like joy is a big part of what we do with everything that we do, and like trying to just bring that joy and like liveliness, or a feeling of being alive on stage. Like I think one of the concerts that we loved so much that we ever played together was we were like sort of testing each other in some of the pieces, not like necessarily even intentionally, but just like really, it was very clear how present we were in our music making, and able to like sort of catch each other, like take different risks and be able to catch each other in those risks. And yeah, so that trust sort of allowed us to be joyous on stage, and I think that's something that we've tried to capture in hopefully all of our programs in some part or another. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I know the piece you're talking about, and I think it was the first time that we were like, oh, like we can do this, you know. It's like, yeah, just being able to take risks together and know that if we could totally screw it up, like we'll laugh about it. Yeah, not being able to, or being able to take risks, like you said. I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry.
Super serious pieces, and then we have some not very serious pieces, and I think it's all, I think we come from a place of it all having merit.
Yeah.
And they end up mixing too. Like, I think of them, I don't know how to say the name. I think it's a Dutch name, but Make Je Naast piece. It's like very, there are times when you find it really funny, but then it shifts to like, there's another part of that piece that's about like, it seems kind of like guilt about like, I think the piece is called like, I walked slowly in front of people in the airport, like trying to get to their terminal, you know? So it's a weird like confessional thing in that piece. So I noticed that in the things that you both are drawn to, that there's like multiple ways you can like experience the thing, you know? Even the Apergeese, where you're kind of like patting each other on the back, there's like a lot of like connection that happens there, but it's also really funny because you're just not used to that way of playing. So yeah, pluralities in the performance.
Alex Temple's viola joke, which is the only piece we have where Adrienne plays viola.
Only piece.
But there's a laugh track, and like it's like, it is, you know, it's very Alex Temple, it's very like tongue-in-cheek and intentionally funny. It's also like one of the most challenging pieces.
Yeah.
So it's like both sides of the coin for that. Like, it's meant to be funny, but in the actual working on it, like it was like a very not funny experience working on it.
I think we have a similar sense of humor though, so it always works out.
You know, and it's cliche, but like talking about comedy being all about timing, you know, I feel like, you know, whenever I'm, you know, watching you guys, like your sense and communication of timing, like you can tell that it's the same amount of attention to each piece, and like making sure and fine tuning that things are coming off. you know, and it's incredible. we were we were talking about the piece again from that last concert of yours that we saw, Time with People by Tim Parkinson. And that was, we were thinking about, actually, we don't have a video of you guys doing it, but we were thinking of playing a little bit of another performance just to give a sense.
Totally.
Yeah, maybe we can talk, all four of us, just like
about
what's it like doing that one.
But there's a pretty good chance I will be driving in time to miss
January 27th.
traffic, but it just all
I
depends
remember
on
this
when
because
I
it was
leave, which
supposed to
depends
be a
on
proper
whether I want
performance.
to sleep in.
that
And I'm
I
not
was going to
totally
give,
sure if I'm going to stay
Well, I gave
tonight,
the
but
performance, but I didn't end up using the hat.
I'm pretty
I put it
sure so that I
in
can celebrate a little bit,
My
and
backpack,
then
put it in the middle
if I
pocket,
woke up
and it was an
around
umbrella hat,
9, then
and
it would
I think it was
probably
the
be
umbrella
pretty
hat
likely that I'd be on the
became
road 10,
collapsed.
10:30.
I have two umbrella hats that's
sometimes, so
identical, except only
then
one of
I
them
would
can collapse.
definitely be
So
driving. So
Perfect.
Yeah,
So
I think the time we saw this piece, I think Linnea, you were performing one of the people, and then
Rachel.
Rachel Beats was playing the other side. And so, do you want to talk about that piece just real quick, like what's going on? Because I think it might be a little like,
Oh,
maybe you don't know.
No, I know, but it's hard to forget. So the piece has each performer has two sets of cards, and one set of cards is a physical direction, like you saw him with his hands up, and then the other set of cards is you're supposed to be answering a question, and I think there are multiple decks. I don't think the deck that we used for our concert, I don't think we had used it before. So I think that he makes them for different successive concerts. But the idea is you've never seen them before, so there's no way to rehearse it. There's no way to practice it. The music that you hear, which is like Rossini or something, and then there's the bell when it's time for you to start and time for you to stop. And sometimes one of them is blank, and sometimes both of them have your cues, your physical cue, and then what you're supposed to answer. And that was like that performance particularly, I will never ever forget that, because that was just like that was just cannonball into the pool. I had no idea what the hell was gonna happen. I've never done anything like that before, ever. And I don't think Rachel,
so funny.
It was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you're talking over each other, so there's a little bit about like, being an audience member and how can you listen to people talking. So there's, again, that's like ensemble skill stuff too going on there, just like most of the stuff that's theatrical and off instrument. A lot of ensemble stuff, but yeah, it's very scary and very fun. And talk about improvisation, it's just like, it's like the core of like what we're doing right now basically, is just improvising and just with a regular conversation, but in front of an audience with things you have no idea. I remember the mounting fear with each card, because it's like, how long is this piece? Like, what are they going to ask? What could I possibly have to say? And you're just keeping on turning them over and hearing that Rossini, which makes you feel like you're going completely crazy on stage.
Yes.
Who would ever choose to listen to that music,
Hot take from Linnea.
But it was so funny to see that piece, and like it is really it's a really challenging thing to try to listen to both people. And then I remember that like at different times Rachel was like in tears, like crying about what you were saying, and the other way around, like you're just it's so like in the moment, you have no idea what's gonna come.
Yeah, so dealing with the reaction too, your own reaction, and then the audience reaction, which was like very surprised, like it was like surprise. Something, so much of that was just so shocking.
Yeah.
And then to also, I mean, I remember that whole concert. We showed up without our instruments. Like I didn't play one time in that concert, and that piece in particular was like the most exposed that I've ever felt in like any piece ever, because not having your instrument in itself is a totally different skill set, but then not being able to prepare is a whole other thing. So
I remember Jen Bawersi giving you guys the instructions and saying like, okay, we shouldn't rehearse this now. just gotta do it.
Yeah. It's so against like what we're used to. I think you're like, I mean, I think as a performer, you always loved, or at least like when I'm performing, I've never done something where I didn't know what I was about to do, like,
yeah, and even just like the sonic experience of it too, just even having gone through it once would have been, to like know what the sounds were going to sound like.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Sound like there was just a lot. Wow. But everyone should perform that piece because it's wild. It's great.
And those alarm sounds, like the bell, like you called it a bell, which is I think very gracious of you.
Yeah, like high school bell. Like,
yeah, and like it's the most like just like sphincter clenching noise. One thing that I remember watching that, I mean, that with a lot of that concert, I was thinking, and I think this is a common trait with these sort of off instrument pieces. As an audience member, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the rules are, and that one was really fun. I mean, it's actually pretty straightforward, but for that first bit, it's pretty bewildering, and you're sort of like looking back for like, is someone like cueing the bells? Like, is it, it's like, are there going to be instruments that they're going to pull out from underneath the table? Like, there's all sorts of, it's like watching a game that you don't know the rules of at all, which I think Access is like maybe there's some, there's a good amount of relationship between like playing a game and ensemble work, but I think with pieces like that, it is like, it's a game.
Definitely.
And humans like watching games.
Yeah, but I love hearing that feedback about being in the audience, because there's also the other participant in that piece is the audience, right? Like that piece would not work without the audience, without hearing the responses and without feeling the energy of people trying to figure out what the heck is going on. While you as a performer is trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
I also think, like you say different things when you're talking in front of people, right? Like if you get asked a question, like one of them I thought was like, what did you do today? Or another one is like, I think Rachel kind of refused to answer one of them in the concert because she was like, I don't want to say that, I don't know what the question was, but there's something about having to talk in front of an audience about things that are pretty mundane or like very personal, where you like, your response even just as a performer is going to be totally different than if you were just talking to friends or talking, to yourself or whatever.
And I was trying to think, like, how do I make this answer interesting? Like, I'm sure, like, I mean, what was like?
There's no trying.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it definitely gets you in the adrenaline. I think it's neat. I think a lot of what Utter Duplicity, a lot of their repertoire pieces are like that, and so that was again one of those like so incredibly rewarding experiences of being turned on to that piece. Like we didn't know about it, and
there was talk of doing that. Sorry, Linnea, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, and did certainly not ever having performed it, even if we had heard of it or heard Jen talk about it. It's really special.
I was gonna say there was talk of doing that concert again at some point.
Yeah. It'd be really great. They were very deep pieces.
And then it happened.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
That was a special night. It's sort of a fun story. I was dating someone at the time that hadn't been to like any new music concerts before, and she knew that I was reviewing stuff, and she's like, "Oh, can I come along sometime?" I was like, "Yeah, like, you know, Aperture's doing it. It's gonna be good." And then it was just like this, like a little bit batshit concert. I mean, she had a great time. She's like, "Whoa, this is what you do."
I had a non-musician friend show up for the first time
Yeah.
to one of my concerts at that concert as well, and she was like, she's an actress, and she was like, "Oh my god, you guys are actors, like, what are you doing?"
That's what's cool about that, and I think again, like a lot of the work that you both do is seems like it's intermedia, or like there's not really bounds to what is allowed in a show or in the project, and
I would say holistic.
Cool. Yeah.
Holistic performance.
Right.
But maybe we should change gears to the future. Instead of talking about this one excellent concert over and over again.
We've gone like
we can do this all day. This is good.
We've done like recent past, then past, now we're in the future, and we'd like to hear about maybe what's coming next for you, or the album.
Yeah.
So we have an album coming out. We're aiming for August/September. We were aiming for a lot early. Whoop, sorry, thought I lost you there for a second. We were aiming there for a lot earlier for a second. Then the pandemic happened, and we decided to wait until we could, hopefully have a small launch party or play outside, do something. So, but we're super excited. We're in the final mastering phase, and it's coming.
It's been a huge project for many years. I think we have 3 years of recordings that we're going to be putting together, which is what it takes when you're, putting together a full. We have a lot of music on this album, so we have 4 commissions and 1 non-commission that we've played so much it feels, like family. Not to sound like the Olive Garden when you're here, your family. So the 4 pieces we have are we have Derek Tywoniak, who is a composer and percussionist, and he has a piece that he wrote us many years ago. It's one of our favorite pieces called Bluettes, and it's based on the book by Maggie Nelson. And they're a set of miniatures as well, but they're longer miniatures than Moon Units. And then we have a piece that we absolutely love, a commission by our friend and colleague Andrew Thole, violinist, Hold Still While the World Turns, which is very improvisationally, kind of originally, that's how he wrote it, but notated and gorgeous sound world of a piece. What else do we have, Adrienne?
Let's see, then we have a piece by Carolyn Chen called My Loves Are in America. And that was part of a project. What?
Irish-ish inspired. Irish.
Yeah, like fiddly. Fiddling inspired. And she wrote that for a project we did with And Play, where we did like a double duo commission project to get new works written for violin viola duos. And we love it. It's an awesome piece. It's so fun to play. It's just wild.
Yeah.
So,
one of our first commissions by Noah Midas, which has a lot of Cajun, New Orleans blues playing style, and also features singing for us, which is great. Wow. And then the non-commission is Clara Iannata's Lee Moon, which we've been playing. We played at our very first concert, and it's just a piece that keeps growing with us. So it's a chock full album of just pieces that I think are each in themselves a total complete sound world, and so together I think the album is going to feel a lot like one of our concerts, where there is a through line, but it's it allows for a lot of contrasting and large variety of sounds and colors.
That's
and Adrienne's doing her album art, obviously. It's incredible. So
yay.
Looking forward. That's cool.
It was important to us to pause and wait until we can launch it when we have a possibility of allowing people to gather and celebrate it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We also, I think, wanted to sort of ask about your process of commissioning, because you have commissioned quite a few works, and it sounds like a lot of times it's in, it's been in collaboration with like a co-commission with another group. But how, I kind of want to ask, sort of in the light of the sort of reignition of civil rights conversations last summer, if you've sort of had conversations between yourselves about how you want to approach commissioning and programming in the future.
Yes, is the answer.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that, I mean, it's interesting to be given this pause as ensembles, and to be given time to reflect and to look back on what we've done and then to look forward to what we want to do. I think it's actually, in a lot of ways, it's really, really special to be able to think about how we want to design the future and who we want and the types of composers that we want to have represented on stage. I think Adrienne and I have always looked for like just composers coming from different styles, and I think we also have always focused on gender parity or close to, depending on the concert and depending on the theme. And I think just like every single new music ensemble, we're moving forward, obviously focusing to make sure that we have representation, diversity of the makeup of composers on stage.
Yeah.
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 It's.
So,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's a important road ahead for everybody.
For everyone.
Yeah.
I appreciate the reminder too that this time there is a point to pause, like, and I think that's something that's interesting. I felt about the way a lot of organizations might have like responded is there's kind of this like breathlessness to like get ahead of an issue, as opposed to this kind of like, let's take stock of what's actually happening and who have we been, where do we want to be. I feel like in a way it's a little more honest for us to kind of pause, as opposed to, I don't know, I think sometimes like
totally. And because when we rush in, when ensembles or institutions rush into statements or blanket statements, it's like
it just can feel a little like, what is the driving factor to like putting out the statement? So
totally.
Yeah. In terms of commissioning though, in general, do you I don't know, maybe we could talk real quick just about that process. Like, are you are people bringing their research to you and kind of going back, doing a back and forth? It seems like the pieces we looked at today maybe were more like postcard pieces that they kind of did on their own, but do you have kind of dialogues? Because I think that's the type of work that also may speak to the potential for like when we do diverse programming, it also creates dialogues that maybe wouldn't have happened before. I don't know if you want to talk just how you work with composers in that way.
I think most of our commissions, there's definitely been a dialogue, except for pieces that have been through like educational institutions. Still a dialogue, but a much shorter dialogue. But I think pretty much every piece we've done is definitely had a lot of back and forth with the composer. Like we've gone to Avaloq for 2 years. It's awesome because you actually get to spend 2 weeks with a composer and really work on the piece together, which is really cool. We went once with Noah Midas and once with Courtney Bryan. And I mean, in real life outside of Avaloq, it's been the same, just much more spread out over time.
Skype.
What?
Skype it. Skype. It's not really the same, but I mean, I think we love, even just like the conversations with Carolyn about this piece, and just I think we never really have program notes for our concerts, but I think that, you know, learning about what interests these composers, it's always the first way that we dive in and the first way that we understand how to work on it. And so that sort of inception conversation is like super important to us.
Yeah. Also, we don't usually have program notes, but we do like to talk a lot at our concerts. And I think, you know, you kind of have to have talked to the composer to know where they're coming from to talk about the piece. So.
No, thinking, I was like, have I ever felt like I needed program notes?
Yeah, we usually talk a lot.
So, yeah.
It's good. It also breaks down some of that, like, the way we're used to going to the new music concert thing. And I think it might be a little more, like, that's, you mentioned Carolyn Chen's piece, and hopefully Carolyn Chen will be our guest in a few weeks, but we'll see. Carolyn also had a baby, so we'll have to make sure everything works out. What was I saying? The baby distracted me. Oh, but yeah, Carolyn's work has this kind of like research quality to it sometimes, like kind of a germ of an idea that then can be like literary or even scientific, or, you know, it sounds like this might have been fiddling for this piece, but that germ begins our inquiry, and it seems in a lot of the pieces like the performers are invited into that inquiry too. So it sounds like that kind of model you're talking about, of like performers having tons of connection to the composing and symbiotic processes. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the joy of being a new musician, you know. It's like, if you don't, you know, there's lots of music that we could play where we wouldn't be able to have conversations with composers and artists. There's no shortage of that music out there in the world, but, you know, being able to really get to know people through their art and through their interests and their ideas is really cool, really special.
Cool.
I also wonder if you, well, obviously you are very open to this, that you know, as composers being, you know, in our education, there was for a long time, I feel like it's maybe breaking down now, but the idea that you have to make a score that someone can pull off pretty much what you want without you being there. And it seems very clear that you guys don't work that way. It's quite a relief to hear that, you know, there's more people that are seeing that that's kind of an outdated mode to work in, you know.
Yeah.
It just makes a lot of assumptions about who is the person who wrote it. And I think, you know, in terms of the tradition of violin and viola music, maybe we're more used to, or we're taught in school that, you know, you play people that aren't around anymore, and it kind of, people who are dead, and it kind of like makes you, it gets you in a practice of not asking any questions of the work explicitly to a composer. You know, you might ask like of the notation, but not like what's the person that made this, like what's their idea, what can I pull out of it, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like offering your own ideas, you know. In I'm trying to remember the word in Carolyn's piece. I think we said it and she put it in the music. One of the mustache, the curly mustache, wasn't that? Didn't we say that?
Curly mustaches.
There's a part in that one of us was like, something like, sounds like a mustache or something. I forget what it came up in we were with her in the conversation. The next draft we got, it was like curly curl that mustache or something. To look it up, but
yeah, I mean, I think the conversation is totally a two-way street, and I think that's one thing that's so exciting. And then we get a piece that really feels like ours. So also, you know, I think everything kind of should be in draft form. Why not? Things should always be evolving. We should be evolving and getting better as people all the time. So should pieces. You know. I think this concept of, you know, having a thing that's like perfect and ready to go makes sense for some ensembles and makes sense for some composers. But I think there's it just made me think of this, Tamsin, when you said that I think a lot of the composers that we've sought out are performers too. So there's like a performative sort of like living feeling about these pieces, and that comes with the idea of knowing that like it's gonna be different every time, and an understanding of what it's like to be on stage from the composers, and knowing that it's gonna be, everything is a little bit improvisational, everything is a little bit different, everything is growing and changing, and I think that's a quality that we seek out, I think, in composers, definitely.
And another example of that was Alex Temple's Viola Joke. She like rewrote parts of the singing for our performance, and it was at Boston Court. I'm blanking on the words right now, but it like had to do with where you were, like
because it was originally for Constellation in Chicago at that space, the performance space, and so then Alex changed it for Boston Court and something else.
So cool.
We had to change it too because we're women, so.
Right, it was written for two men, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. I think the video I've seen is two men performing it, but yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Why not keep everything in draft form? I love it.
Yeah. It's a cool, like, again, I don't know, I think it comes up again with the idea of the diversity thing, like to become less sure of yourself is actually a good thing, you know, to be willing to like
Be
be in
permeable.
drafts, be like to be okay with like a newness and not needing things to be like rigidly one way. And I think that's like, I mean, it sounds like the process that you go through for things like Snapshot. There are drafts you're making in the background that aren't the product that we necessarily see online, but it's that process is what gets you to make, and it's good.
Totally.
Yeah, cool.
I think we should probably wrap it up since we usually have a break at the hour and then, you know, do a little bit more. But it's so nice to see you guys.
Good to talk.
Great to talk.
Yeah.
You know, we just appreciate the work that you do, and we're looking forward to the album.
Yeah, and looking forward to
Active art share, just
I
over
know.
What?
like reading snacks in the back of art share.
yeah.
Eating cuties.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
cute
Reese's
cookies.
Cups.
Exactly. Trying to find the trash. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the day we're back there, though. Yeah, maybe for the album release. Who knows? But yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much, and everyone check out the work. It's really, really great stuff, and on their YouTube, which we can link when we put this up on YouTube. So great. Cool. And we'll see you all hopefully in 2 weeks. We're still figuring out logistics, but yeah. So don't expect. Just kidding. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Ear to the ground. We'll be back.